Hi, my name is Lindsay Adler and I'm a New York City portrait and fashion photographer. And what I want to share with you is high impact lighting. So lighting that really captures your eye, whether it's for portrait, commercial work, fashion photography, beauty photography, the type of lighting that really grabs your attention. But the key here is that I'm going to share with you high impact lighting that isn't a huge production. You don't need a ton of expensive equipment. You don't need a lot of lights or crazy modifiers. Instead, this is going to be high impact, low fuss lighting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it simple. So first off, I'm going to use a maximum of 3 strobes. Most of the time I'll be using 1 strobe or 2 strobe, but the maximum of 3. So you don't need to have a huge studio with a lot of lights to make these images. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to keep your modifiers very simple. You don't need a lot and you don't need anything fancy. A softbox, a silver reflector dish, and a beauty dish. And so what I'm going to teach you is you don't need to have a big production or anything expensive or even a huge space to make beautiful images. So from now on, after watching this video, you have no more excuses. It's beautiful light, no matter the situation, no matter the equipment you have available to you. I want to take a minute to talk about the equipment that I'm going to be using during this video. Now, personally, I have Broncolor lighting, but everything that I do in this presentation, you could do with any lighting setup you have, as long as you have strobes. So this is not geared towards constant light, but instead strobes. Any brand is fine. I've started off with, I shot with Alien Bees and White Lightning and a little bit of everything, but today I have Broncolor. Now, the modifiers that we're using is I'm using the silver reflector that comes with my lights. So this is something that pretty much any light that you get comes with. They can come in 5 inches, 7 inches, there's a bunch of different sizes, but any smaller silver reflector will be able to duplicate the lighting we're doing here today. Next, I have a beauty dish. It's a 22-inch white beauty dish. And then finally, I have a 100-inch square softbox. Let me talk a little bit about these modifiers. So how I think of it is I think of it as a continuum of harsh light to soft light. Your silver reflector dish is going to give you the most concentrated, most contrasty light. And so it's a little bit harsher, but it often gives you a lot more control, and it's great for creating drama in your images. But if you don't want such harsh light, because again, if you're photographing a portrait, maybe it's a little bit too raking for the face, or you want something a little more forgiving, then you might try a beauty dish. And a beauty dish is kind of a cross in between a silver dish and a softbox. So you have a lot more control with a beauty dish, but it's not harsh. It's more forgiving. It gives you a little bit softer shadows, and it gives you a little bit more broad light source. If you want to go really forgiving, say for a portrait, or you want softer light, or light that wraps around the scene, that's when you would select a softbox. Before we dive into covering all about different lighting setups, what I wanted to take a minute to discuss was angles and shadow. And this is one of the things you really need to consider if you're trying to have high impact lighting. When people light, they commonly are focused just on, left and right. The further you take a light to the left or the right of the subject, the bigger the shadows, the more dramatic the image typically. That's one axis, but also raising the light up also increases shadows, and it can carve out the facial features of your subject. So maybe it brings out the cheekbones or the jawline. So that's one aspect of making an image more dramatic, or maybe filling in the shadows. So remember, you have angles left and right and up and down. But the next thing, okay, controlling the shadows, what can you do to make them lighter or darker? Maybe you're adding reflectors to fill in shadows and to give yourself a more of a glowing feel. Or maybe you're increasing shadows by making a modifier more contrasty by adding a grid, or taking cinefoil to focus it down almost to a snoot. So what it comes down to is being able to know what type of image you're trying to create, and then what type of tools and angles create that end effect. And that's what I'll be talking about throughout this entire video.